Alright, another one today. So we've got Liquidavasi. Why do all my renders come out looking flat or fake? So I've uploaded a few of them, basically two main images. I've chosen the best one out of those three that I thought, just because I do like the colouring and stuff, makes it look a bit more natural. Okay, so making it look flat. So it really comes down to, it's basically lighting, where if you were to light this by using, say, two lights, one where it is and then another one in another color to light the other side, it'll just give it a bit more shape. But then, as other people were saying, the use of textures, so you've got some texture here, but it's because mostly it's because things are grey at the moment, like they're greyed generally, and so by using another light, using a bit more of a reflection, subsurface scattering, specular, as well as like some smaller textures in terms of size, like so you've used the shape of the sand here, but you need that sort of extra detail of the sand, which I think might be lost in this. And water is notoriously hard to get to look right, like you'd have some foam and stuff on the top here as it hits it. So we can hide that by using, say, little rocks and pebbles just to hide on the seam of the water meeting the sand there. And then you can add a few extra ones just up in the sand so that it like blends a little bit more. And yeah, and like these rocks will pop out a whole lot more if you just use a secondary light source. Doesn't need to be strong, but just to capture those little extra areas will make it round off a bit more. And to give a bit more depth, yeah, I would just be adding, making this a little bit lighter, lowering the saturation and stuff a bit too. And I would look into how you are displacing or using a bump map for this water, giving it just a little bit more variation. Look at actual images online, because water doesn't really look like this in the, at least in the context of this sort of beachy look. Like there'd be ripples and stuff coming out of each place it would hit. I do like the reflections though, and I do like the way you've used your light. I'd be looking as well into different types of lights, so like point lights, area lights, directional lights and stuff to get a different look. I'd spread these birds out as well slightly. Think about how you use the silhouette to actually show what the image is. And I do like the light rays and stuff that you've got going on, but again, consider the silhouette of this area down here. I do know it's some sort of butterfly. Yeah, and then it's on a ship, so I'd be like maybe smoothing out that ship a little bit more, adding a bit more lighting on the actual ship here. But as well, I'm not sure why I'd be so down so low if this is just starting in the sandbank, unless it like really goes off quickly, but I can't assume that quickly. So I'd be looking in the positioning of this boat, and just and in terms of composition too, I'd give maybe a bit more breathing room over the butterfly, and maybe tighten it up a little bit more, but it's looking okay. So the things I'd be looking into is lighting from multiple sources, how you use your texture maps and textures to actually add some more realism, also hiding some of your weaknesses by using little pebbles, and thinking contextually about the silhouettes and the position of the models that you've got. Yeah, that's good stuff. And then we've also got this one here, so yeah, like I'd be probably adding in some models in the foreground to give it a bit more depth. And again, yeah, just using a bit more precisely your lighting to show the shape of the model rather than just sort of putting in where a sun would be or whatever. As well as adding coloured lights in to give it a bit more natural or other feels in the scene, as well as adding actual grass and stuff to remove that bump that you've got there that's quite predominant and obvious. But yeah, that's good stuff, man. You're going alright. So we've got Minecraft 16, very much a work in progress right now. First time modeling and reading a character, planning snow and lights on fence. Any suggestions, feedback? Thank you. Okay, let's have a look. So if I was lighting this, I'd be lighting with a colored light a little bit more. Because it's snow, probably a blue light, maybe another yellow light as well. You've got only a small amount of light on their back there. You could keep that, but pump it up a whole lot more, and then just having two lights coming from either side, one higher than the other, like one more intense than the other, and then one maybe slightly yellow or orange and the other one a little bit blue. I'd be adding a bit more of a background in, or if you do have if you wanted to have a grayer sort of look, adding a whole lot more trees in the back and then having fog going on. Adjust the trees slightly, maybe adding a different type of tree, like those cone sort of ones, adding in some bushes as well and some larger rocks. But thinking about, so we've got a fence here, so this is probably either in someone's backyard or it's like a neighbor. So think contextually about what might actually be in that yard. And in terms of the fence, you are repeating the same fence over and over again with it going in a sort of curve shape, which is fine, but it's just consider if you're doing that because you're lazy or because that's the fence that you want it to be. And as well with the fence, I would just be adding in a bit more of a bevel around the sharper corners, just so that it can catch the light a little bit more. Maybe looking into different materials so it can reflect a bit of ambient occlusion. And adding with the snowman, look, that's great. I honestly like it. I'd be maybe thinking, because his hand might be made out of sticks, just to add a little bit more of a longer fingers, maybe some slight imperfections and stuff around it. And don't forget his little buttons. Usually there's 3 buttons down the middle there too, but that's just me. In terms of composition, it's a pretty nice composition. I like that you've used motion blur as well. And I don't know if you've used think about depth of field too, just so that we can have a bit more focus on the snowman. But yeah, it's honestly, it's really good. You should be happy with it. Nice. Okay, now we've got Man Reed. Looking for ways to improve my Phoenix. Any suggestions are welcome. Okay, so first I would say is just look into how to render, just so you can render some nice things. I love the bloom that you've got here. I do like the textures, but I feel like you don't have enough control over this texture than what you want. So I'd be looking into using painting, like creating a UV map. And it looks like this is fiber effects or like hair, so I think in time you will just get more natural at that, but I'd be looking into maybe more pattern work and stuff around the Phoenix. The face and tail are the weakest parts. You could like cover both those up, and then I would say that it would look generally okay. It is quite an ostrich looking Phoenix, but that's fine. Like I'd just be thinking as well about how long that neck is, in terms of the type of look that you want. Consider as well changing the texture for the legs, because like then they might be able to stand out a little bit more, like maybe a darker red or something. For the tail, having it nice and long, using maybe the same textures as the feathers. Look into how wings are actually built. There's usually like maybe 3 major parts to a wing. There's a whole lot more, but I would look into the structure of wings, just so then you can have those layers of feathers and stuff going on, the different types of feathers. And so I would be looking into how you've built this eye and the face shape, because that's the first thing that people are going to be drawn to after looking at the wings. But so far, like, this is a great thing to build off of. And yeah, just a lot of little things at the moment, and it's working on your process. But no, nice work. And then we've got 09 Canada Boy. Oh yeah, this is the one from the other day that I was looking at. So, alright, or like, it was just today, I just recorded it like just before this video. So, what do you think these images need to make them look even better? Okay, so you have changed the composition a little bit from the last one that I looked at. And so now if we have a bit more of a look in, we've got a nice use of foreground here. Nice use of color. I would maybe move one, or copy one of these leaves to put it here, just so that we've got a nice balance of dark and light greens. Maybe just trying to get some light to capture on this pot just a little bit more. The piano could be moved maybe just slightly to the right or slightly to the left, and then have, if it's moved to the left, move this violin over to the window, because this is starting to take attention. Same with this. These are in detail, like they're in focus as much as the piano. So now my head is a bit over here, which is not really where you'd want. You'd want my focus either to be here or around this sort of area more, rather than all the way over here. I do like that I can see the details on the paintings a little bit more. Maybe just lower their reflectivity a little bit more so it doesn't look as grey and washed out. Adding in a bit of a normal map too, just to make the paint pop a little bit more out. I know it's probably a canvas, but even then it'll just add just that little bit of extra detail, as if like the print has gotten those dimensions. Windows do look great. It might just be because of how it's made, or it's like material, but this one looks a little bit strange here, as if it's probably just reflecting and all that. Really nice curtains. They probably need to just have a bit more gravity to them so that they're drawn down a little bit more, but that's good stuff. I really like the way you've used lighting and everything too in this. It's a nice piece. And then we've got another angle for it. So I think that this could be adjusted slightly by maybe moving this statue over a little bit more, so we don't have as much of this side of the silhouette. And maybe moving this piece a bit closer, just so that we're sort of peeking through it a little bit more, and as if we've got two big masses rather than little spindly things, just so that the thing in the foreground doesn't take away from the thing in the background. And maybe putting the piano just on a slight angle so we can see a bit more dimension to it, as it's looking quite flat compared to the chair, which looks like it's got a lot more dimension and stuff in it. And then coming over here, just maybe looking into the material that you've got on these little trims, just so it's got a bit more texture, and pushing detail a bit more into it. But yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that piece. And yeah, no, awesome work. Really good job. Okay, and then we've got Ritty Walks, Chibi character I made today. Any tips? Alright, I'm sure she speaks like that as well, or he. Okay. Let's go through it. Okay. So, I did remember reading somewhere was saying about, yeah, on this back piece here, just adding a sort of bald cap or whatever of the colour of her hair, just to hide those little bits of skin, unless you want that, but I'm assuming you don't. Now, I would just be adding, yeah, if we look in, see, you can see the eye and the eyelid don't meet up, so I'd just be looking into how you've been modelling this, maybe to clean it up a little bit more. Adding just a little bit more subtle shapes and stuff in the cheeks. I know that Chibi is all about being quite simplistic, but that can make it harder because it's more about all the subtle things. And maybe even adding some slight blush to the cheeks. And for the mouth, you could maybe add some teeth in there. I know that this is in T-pose and doesn't have any expressions, but you know, that's probably the next thing you'll be looking into. I'd be adding in maybe just some slight folds in the clothing to give it a bit more realism, but again, it sort of depends on your art style. In terms of cropping, yeah, you could probably crop this a little bit closer, maybe adding a bit more of a reflection on the ground, or just some bump maps, and just adjusting the colors slightly to make it maybe pop a little bit more saturated, because of the type of character that it is. But yeah, like the hair's great, the character design is really good. Maybe considering switching that 8 over, as it looks like it's upside down. But yeah, no, good stuff. Alright, and then we've got Antillean 66, relatively new to ArcViz interior design. These are some recent renders. Any tips to improve? Alright, so I think this was the first one, and that was the second one. Yeah. Okay, so composition is pretty good. I would just adjust maybe the camera to be slightly facing the window a little bit more, and then move to the side so it captures the lounge a little bit more. I just feel like this window is taking up a bit too much real estate in this picture, but I feel like it should be in there, and then you don't want to lose any of that lounge in the picture either. The UV map for this, I would be looking into how the corners have connected up. Same with the one on the bottom, see how they're not really lining up. You might need to go in there painting it a little bit more. And the lounge looks good, really good. Good use of light. Sorry. Excuse me. I really like this rug. I like the way you've put that together, and then the floorboards. It's quite a simple scene, but yeah, I'd just be looking into maybe the composition a little bit more, and maybe using a bit more bloom on the light, and adjusting the camera angle slightly, just to capture the scene a little bit better. Either go a bit more over to the lounge and make that the focus, or make the window the focus a bit more. It just feels like that this is taking my attention too much at the moment. So you could even cut it out completely and see how that goes, balancing about how far you want it to be. If you do crop it, cutting out this window, I'd be adding maybe another chair here just to give it a bit more foreground detail. Yeah, awesome work. Love the little trims and stuff that you've got going on. It's really good. And yeah, great lighting in this. I would say that it's maybe just slightly too dark, but that's just me. In terms of modeling, lounge is really good. Honestly, you've got a really good foundation that you've got going on here. Good understanding of modeling and cloth dynamics, composition and lighting. I'd maybe just drop the camera down just slightly so that this can be cut off a bit more, and then we can have a bit more of the ground. Every element in the picture seems to be quite well done. Like, I can see that you've broken up the silhouette of this, and that's really good. And then still, by using that light, you can make this a bit more, like, you've made this obvious. Maybe just some slight ambient occlusion just to darken this edge here. And I feel like this texture isn't right. Like, it's a bit too stretched or too long compared to this wall over here. Just something to look into. And then, yep, so same sort of things I would be saying before. Add a bit more bloom to the light. Composition is really good, except I would just probably drag the camera back slightly or push it a bit more forwards. Just, I feel like it's, because it's this thing here that's getting me. Maybe even keeping the composition as it is, but moving this, this a bit further forwards, just to give it a bit more depth. Like plates and all this is modeled really nicely. Like I was saying before, just checking your UV maps about how they blend over edges. Yeah, no, that's really good. I'm really happy with that. But yeah, I think it's just composition. See, I would probably, yeah, I would compose it maybe more like this rather than like that. The ceiling's really boring. Like, it's good, don't get me wrong, it's a good ceiling, but it's taking too much of my attention away. But it's now it's getting down into the subtle parts. So that's where don't spend too long on this, because you can, but this will take probably sometimes as much time as making the render until you've got a good eye for it. Okay, and then we've got Meep, lol. The submerged ruins rendered in Eevee. Any suggestions to improve the lighting? Okay, so if I'm just talking about lighting, I'd be looking into light rays, which it sort of looks like you've got, but sorry, making them a bit more prominent. I'd be looking into adding in a secondary light source that will act a bit more like a fill light, and so what you can do then is change the direction of this first light so it doesn't capture all the detail here, but it gives it a bit more on the side, so then the fill light can do the rest. And then you can even maybe consider adding in a rim light just to get around the edges of this. I'd just add in some more smaller bumps to this sand too, so then it can capture the light a little bit more. And kind of like what you've done, I think, where you've gotten like areas that are missing out, is maybe using like an alpha on the light, just so it can break it up as if it's going through the top of the ocean, and then it's being dispersed unevenly around everything. And I would change the direction of some of these fish just slightly, so then you can show the model a bit more, but also thinking about how your lighting should be, if it depends on how you want to go with this, but it should be trying to show the model in its best light, pardon the pun, but consider how it can show emotion, composition, context, and like temperature and everything too. And just trying to balance it around so that it's not as flat and direct. And I would say that would be you mucking around with 3 different lights, and know that this at the moment is the key light, and then you would add another light in to fill this area up, which would be the fill light, and then adding in the last light, which would be the rim light, which will try and be on a slight angle and be much brighter to show the little edges around here. But I'd be careful with that rim light, because it just might not work how you want it to. But I'd be looking into adding a fill light in and changing the key light direction. In terms of color though, coloring of the light is really good too. Awesome. Okay, so Summer Pup. I modeled and textured a microphone. I'm trying to get it to look a bit more realistic. It looks off to me. Any idea why? Alright, let's have a look. Okay, so I would maybe just change the orientation of this. See how it's on a slight angle? Look, that's just me, to make it look more up and down and mechanical and flat. And I would try and get a reference for a microphone too, just so you can add in those little extra details. And what did you say? Looks off. Yeah, it's I would say it because you need to look at an actual reference image to base it off much more directly, because you might have little little seams and stuff in here, little bumps and buttons, and how things are mechanically built. But I'd say, yeah, changing that orientation a little bit more. Nice HDRI. And maybe using slight bloom on the lighter parts, a bit of ambient occlusion too, to darken the areas in the middle. And I would say that it's probably looking mostly off because it's a still image and there's not much composition really going on with this. Yeah, if you were to say place it on a wooden like floor, as if you were to make like a tabletop, giving it a bit more context can make it look a little bit more realistic. And then especially also adding in some depth of field, as if it's like sort of pointing at you and then the back bit is blurred a little bit more. That's the stuff I'd say. But good use of like HDRI though with the reflections. I'd just be starting to consider a bit more a place that it, like a setting for it, and that might really add some reference to it. Okay, so Furlan, ITA, Slenderman's Hospital, Cycles. I'm very proud of this, but I still need feedback. No worries. Okay, so good use of marking the silhouette, but I would just say that you can probably position this a little bit more menacingly. I like the use of the bizarre color that you've got, but be careful of too much blur, as this you can use depth of field, I would say, rather than the shaky hand cam. Oh, sorry. I do like the floor, but like the boards and stuff that you've got going on. I'd just be thinking maybe a bit more realistically about this place, like looking into just building a chair in a bit more of a realistic way by adding some more curves and stuff in there too. And I would say that, yeah, this lighting, just up the resolution a little bit more with it, just so like it's a bit more cleanly blurred. I would add in some nice bloom too, just to make it shine a little bit, and even adding in a secondary light just to capture a bit more form. Doesn't need to be too much, but yeah, just possibly just looking into that. That's the sort of stuff I'd say with the level that you're at the moment. Composition too, maybe just cut off the these two major like boring parts on the side here. They're just not really adding too much to the image. But yeah, no, awesome work. You're going great. And then last one, we've got Winter Comet 7. This is my first render I've made on my own. I think the lighting is a bit off, so any suggestions would be welcome. Thanks. Okay. So now, I'm not sure why we've got these sort of smoky effects around the edge. That's something to look into. I feel like they that like it kind of adds to it, but it doesn't really either as well. It sort of is distracting to me. The lighting is really nice. I'd be considering smoothing out some of this model here, like smoothing out the cherry, and maybe adding just a bit more texture to the actual like whipped cream. I would say this is like icing, yeah. Adding a bit like, or taking this paper cup a bit thinner, making the plate smooth again and a bit more reflective so it can shine some of the stuff possibly. And I would be looking into the background color, maybe like a pinky purple is what I'm maybe thinking, or a blue or something else. It's sort of blending a bit too much with this green here. Or you could adjust the color of this green paper cup stuff to just make it stand out a little bit more. terms of composition, because this area is slightly darker because of the shadow, I would just cut off a little bit of a slither over here. But it depends on how tight you want to get. So you could get this into like a square. So if you're going and uploading this on Instagram, just giving a lot more breathing room up the top because of the stalk, but you can still have a bit of breathing room down the bottom here because of that plate. Awesome work. It's a great model. Thanks so much for sharing it. Alright, thanks. Bye everybody.